Hey guys, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory, and this week I'm trying to figure out if I want to ride a 29er or a mullet. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll be very familiar with this bike. This is my 2021 Vitus Sommet enduro bike, okay? And this is what I ride about 90% of the time, to be honest. And it's a 29er. However, if you look closely today, I've taken the 27-inch rear wheel off of my Vitus E-Sommet enduro bike to make this into a mullet. Now, why would I do that? Well, mostly, I guess, it's curiosity. Recently, I was curious enough to experiment with my bar width, and I'm really glad I did. You can check out that video above there. But mostly, you know, you can't help but notice that mullet bikes, i.e. mixed wheel size with a 29 and 27, they're a thing. They're a thing at the World Cups. They're a thing everywhere you look at the moment with all the marketing, and increasingly they're creeping into the Enduro World Series as well, and I'm curious. If you look closely at this bike then, it has got a flip chip here at the lower shock mount. And what that does is, if you keep it in 29er mode, is it raises the bottom bracket by about 6mm, and it steepens the head angle by about ½ degree. Now, I've never ridden the bike in that setting, in 29er mode. I'm not sure why you would, because what it's made for is to make the bike more versatile so that you can try out the mullet. And that's exactly what I'm doing today. So I've dropped the rear wheel in here off the e-bike, it's a 27-inch rear wheel, put this in the high setting, and when I measured literally with my phone, it maintains the head angle of 64 degrees, and basically actually the geometry is exactly the same, so it's a really effective way to switch over and yeah, get a sort of apples to apples comparison of 29er versus 27. Now, I'm very aware the proper way to do this is back-to-back runs with timing and the same tyre and all that sort of thing. I just don't have the time. Okay, I've got a job, I've got 2 kids, I don't have time. So it's going to be about subjective feel. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and get some laps in on this 29er setup. I'm at a very familiar trail that I know really well. I know what a bike does around here. I've ridden it literally hundreds of times, and I'll let you know how I get on. Now, as well as my feelings today, there's a few things I've got to consider. Number one is, look, I'm not the tallest guy. I'm just under 5'10", 176 centimeters, but I don't ever really buzz my bum. I ride some really steep stuff, but I don't seem to have an issue with tyre clearance at the back there, apart from the Meg Avalanche, and I've got no plans to go back there. So actually, do I need that bit of extra clearance? Again, on the side of the 29er, for me, fast is fun, okay? And if the wheel is rolling over things more, and you know, if there's a bit more traction, a bit more braking traction and so on, then that's all pros for the 29er for me. When I think about my riding though, and I think about where I can make up time, like most people, it's all about the corners. Like, corners is where you make or break a race run, or just corners where you get dropped by your quicker mates, or where you drop the slower guys at the back. And so if I feel like the 27-inch wheel at the back helps me to corner with more confidence, then that for me is going to be a deal breaker. That's going to be where I say goodbye to 29er and I go with the mullet setup, because if I can improve my cornering confidence, then I can improve my technique, I can improve my exit speed, be a faster rider, have more fun, and who doesn't want that? Okay, so done about an hour now, just banging a few laps with a few different trails here. Mostly it's running pretty well, a little bit greasy in spots, but like I said, I know it really well, and I'm a little torn at the moment, I'll be honest. So here's my thoughts. At the moment, the climb has got some real rough sections, and they feel rougher. I can definitely feel it's not as smooth with that smaller rear wheel, just not getting up over those rocky steps and over those routes and that sort of thing. And on the kind of medium bit of fire road, again, it just feels rougher. Maybe you have to work a little bit harder. Having said that, the climbing position doesn't feel any different. And I'd also caveat that by saying, I kind of don't care. Most of our riding is just winching up fire roads, and I'm all about the way down. So if the up is a little bumpier, it's an enduro bike, not a trail bike. On the way down and in the turns, it's so hard to know if it's different or if it's just because I know the rear wheel is smaller and it's supposed to go around corners better and be more agile and nimble. I feel that I can kind of pop and pump a little bit more maybe. Like there's some rollers in these woods. You can catch some backsides, and I feel like the bike feels a little more dynamic maybe. And certainly just setting up into the turn, I think it's just a little more willing to tip in, okay? But it's very marginal. I mean, as you can see from the picture, if you're talking that much difference in the wheel size, it's not a big deal. But I think there's definitely something in it. And later this week, I'm gonna go and ride some big, steep, technical, gnarly tracks, and I think that's gonna help me figure it out. So here I am. As promised, I took it to some steep, gnarly tracks in South Wales, and as you can see, they might have got the better of me. But in general, having done about 1,200 meters of vert and some real tight, like gnarly, rocky switchbacks, this makes sense right here. It didn't make sense on my local flat, like single track, but up here where it's gnarly, where it's steep, on those tight corners, suddenly I could really find myself carrying more corner speed, more exit speed. However, the thing I also found, which led to this, is that I kept oversteering when I was putting the same amount of body language into the bike that I would on my 29er setup. I was doing that here because I'm still not like tuned into it, and I kept oversteering, having to dab on banks, and that's ultimately what made me crash. I just railed a turn faster than I think I would have done on my 29er, came round but carried on turning and stuck it in a bank, went over the bars, went flying. So, enough chatting. What am I thinking? I'm thinking that I think I like it. I'm still a bit torn because there's definitely some flatter bits where my mates on 29s are gapping me. They didn't used to, but when it's really steep and gnarly, it feels really good. And if I practice riding it and get used to it, then I think I'm going to go for it, but I'm really not sure. So I don't know is the bottom line. I'm going to see which bike's available first and probably get that one. But if I was a gun to my head, I'm going to go with a trend and I'm going to get the Mullet bike, I think.